Hey everyone, my name is Elio. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Scalestack. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm interviewing, and I'm so happy for you to be here, Andy Mowat. He's building Whispered, and he will tell us a bit more about his vision behind Whispered and what he's building. And we'll go also a little bit deeper into how he's building his AI strategy, but also how he's building on top of Scalestack. And I'm very glad that you're here, Andy. We have developed, I think, a terrific relationship over the past year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. And so glad for you to be here and telling us a little bit more about what you're building.
That's great. I'm so pumped. It's been fun getting to know you, getting to know the team as well too.
Very cool. So I always love origin stories. And in preparing for this, I discovered that many moons ago, you had partnered with like a private equity company to like sort of search for an HR tech um, on behalf of them, I guess, or maybe with your strategy. So this was like probably almost like 20 years ago or so. And so this idea is probably been in your mind for a very long time. Is that the case, or like have you evolved the thinking around like HR?
I'd say this origin story starts even further back, where it's like I think everybody gets punched in the face with their career at some point, right? So you're seeing, I'm talking to a lot of people now that say, hey, I've never had to actually search before. I've been able to follow my network. I've been pulled out of companies. People have recruited me out. And so this is the first time I ever got punched in the face, and it hurts. Right. And you have to look, it's very different when you're reacting to people saying, hey, Elio, do you want to come work here? Versus you having to go search. And so I had that happen to me in 2001 when I graduated from Stanford from business school. I graduated in '01. There were no jobs. I also partied a little bit too hard in business school and didn't actually bother to think through what I wanted to do. And so you couple the two of those, I didn't have a job for 9 months. And so I had to get really, really good at networking and being really clear in what I wanted and proactively going after things. And so I ended up having a job. Then I ended up working for the family that I ended up working for a wealthy family. Then I ended up working for that private equity firm, diving deep into human capital. I then read Ferris's 4-Hour Workweek book, and I was like, shit, I need to work at Elance or Odesk, which became Upwork. And so I then cold called both of those CEOs. And I ended up getting a job working directly for Fabio at Elance that became Upwork. And I ran his BD. I ran a lot of the sales, and I then started to get deep into the ops and the marketing. And I think I sent an email to 1 million people that were all IT professionals, and I got Elance banned their entire domain for 45 days, which was not fun. That's a long-winded way of saying I've thought about human capital my whole career. And I've also thought about like, how do you build a career and build networking? And I've gotten really good at that piece. And so, yeah, I've been involved in 2 HR tech businesses, plus that PE firm where I looked at a lot of them. And I've thought a long time about how do you bring the two sides of the marketplace together. We aren't building a marketplace. We're building a solution to executive problem. It happens to help the other side of the marketplace, which is companies and recruiters and talent teams too.
Very cool. I'm also very passionate about this. When I was at AWS, I became a bar raiser. I don't know if you know like the term.
Yes, I know. No, it's a great concept. I hear it all the time now.
It's probably the thing that I miss the most of Amazon, of the day by day life, because it's a role that is so key to what Amazon has become. And like, it was super fun for me to do. A bar raiser, for like the people that don't know, is essentially you are part of the team that hires people together with the hiring manager. The bar raiser has veto power. So like, even if the manager wants to hire that person, but the bar raiser thinks that like that person is not a fit, the hire doesn't happen. And so it's a big responsibility. And usually, or actually that's the concept, a bar raiser is outside of the hiring team. So has no vested interest if that hire gets made or not. And so it raises the bar. And then the other side of the bar raiser is that it puts the onus of like a better process to the hiring manager and to everybody that is performing that hiring process. And so I've done hundreds of hours of training on this and like hundreds or probably thousands of interviews in a wide range, of roles within the Amazon, because most likely they were not, they were not in my team for sure, but most likely they were not even at AWS. They were like Amazon advertising or Amazon retail or like, etc. So this is also very, very important to me. How did you, and then after like the early stages that you described, you started
Yes.
working more on ops. This is sort of like the combination of the two. Your ability to build operations and data and all of that stuff with the passion for this big problem around like how do people hire or get recruited. Is that so? Is that a good interpretation or?
Yeah, it's come in different ways. I'd say the ops piece, I definitely at Upwork discovered that while I started off running BD, I ended up running sales ops, the SMB sales, the sales ops, and the marketing ops, and I learned what I was really, really good at. And so then I've done that a bunch of times. I think for me, I started just being really good at networking and connecting people and making introductions. And a lot of people would find me and would ask, how do you do that? So I would teach them on that. I think about 3 years ago, I started to play with, I have to go look for my next job again because I'm in a failed startup. And so how am I going to do it better than anybody else? So I called my friends and I asked them 2 questions. I said, what do you do when you meet a company and when you interview with a company and you learn about it? I want to know what the breakout companies are. And they said, well, I have this little sheet that I don't do anything with. And so I said, give those to me. So for the last 3 years, people have been giving me insights on breakout companies and toxic ones. And then I also said, if a recruiter calls you, so I called all the top RevOps people who were all my friends. And I said, if a recruiter calls you, what do you do with that? And they said, don't know. I said, well, take the call, send it to me. And so Whispered was that very early.
Yeah.
And then I started to play with enrichment. Initially, I started playing with Clay on the company enrichment side, but then that's when you and I think actually then I joined Carta, and then you and I met, and I started to realize the limitations of Clay, and your team opened my eyes up to all the possibilities of what I could do with data and agents at scale. And so that in a lot of ways opened up the ability for me to start to push the bounds on what Whispered is because of that.
And so this is the passion for the use case and the problem around people getting hired, which has like, the 2001 origin story and like, what you had to do to find like a strong role. The experience in ops, and ops to me is so amazing because these are like really product people on data. Like if I had to summarize, it's like, how do I build like, product on top of data around most likely companies, investors, and people running those companies or working at those companies and at those investors. And that's what
Yes.
Whispered is doing. So like building a pretty remarkable and comprehensive set of inputs and outputs on like companies, investors, and roles and people. Correct?
Yeah. The objects would be VCs, called investors, companies, people, roles, and then a separate one for recruiters as well too. And so you want to understand those. There's information you can get from speaking to them, but you're not going to automate yourself. And since I literally am building this as a one-person AI-driven business, I didn't have the ability to do that work at scale.
And then AI comes in. And AI, I don't think we could have done any of this without AI, right? The current AI technology, right? So like the last 3 years. And I think with that comes also your observation, which I think you have shared in the past, that like the entire like B2B tech stack will be rebuilt. And so when was like, so it seems that you've started thinking about Whisper like many years ago, but like when was the moment that you said, I gotta do this now?
I bought the domain before I joined Carta to run RevOps. I had 3 weeks before I started, and I said I've been working on this in my mind. I debated whether I should start it before I joined and not do
Yeah.
Carta, but I realized no, there's a real opportunity to learn a lot and kind of run it back one more time. And so I used those 3 weeks. I just went to Tahoe and I coded up Whispered V1, and it looked like shit. And the data, the website was terrible. I think it was on a Notion page, and the database was in an Airtable. But from there, I at least wanted to before I started at Carta and really like rolled my sleeves up. I wanted to get the thing live, and so then from there, I just got to spend nights and weekends writing, iterating on the model, learning, refining it, and just getting smarter on what I really wanted to build.
Very cool. And now you left Carta. And when was this? Like at the beginning of this year? March. You left Carta and like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna you told me this, which I think was very powerful. You told me
Yep.
this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my career, which I thought was extremely powerful. Um, and so maybe let's first talk about the strategy or what you can share about your AI strategy. And then I'd love to talk because I mean you chose actually when you were a Carta Clay over Scalestack, which was very painful at the time for me. But then you kept being curious about what we were building and I'm pretty persistent and I didn't let you go because I really enjoyed all of our conversations back then. And so now you are building on Scalestack, which is fantastic to see. So maybe let's start from the strategy first about like what is your strategy for Whispered and particularly around AI.
Yeah. Recruiters work for companies. We work for executives. So we are focused on senior executives. When you pop your head up, if you've been doing well, whether you're a VP of RevOps, you're a SVP of sales, a CRO, a CMO, CCO, head of customer success, those jobs aren't posted. They are whispered. And in addition to that, if you've been a good operator for 3 or 4 years, the hot breakout companies are completely changed. The rate of tech change is happening so fast. The recruiters that you knew have all moved to different firms. And your network is stale. And so if you pop your head up, and this is kind of why I built it, because I was wrapping up as a CEO. So not only was I popping my head up after 3 years running my last company before Carta, I also didn't even have the background to do it because I'd been a CEO. So it was like, in addition, even more scary, right? And so I think it is a real challenge. You're like, shit. I mean, I had moments of doubt in my last search of like, shit, like, am I ever employable again, right? And then you get a little bit older, and it's all that stuff. And no, I am. I just have to be really eloquent and speak. There's the tactics of how do you work with all these different things. But what Whispered brings is all of that, right? So we solve the problem of the unposted roles. We aren't scraping them from anywhere. There's a whole series of sources that are giving them to us. We partner with recruiters, talent partners, and executives share a lot of them. We have the deepest database of unposted go-to-market roles anywhere. We also have the deepest database of confidential executive insights on venture-backed and PE-backed companies. But you want to know more than just what is the anecdotal information. You also want to know, which you guys have actually built one for us. We send an agent out. A lot of people are working in Des Moines or Wichita or Charlotte, and they don't want to work in San Francisco or New York. And so how do they narrow down to figure out which companies do hire remotely and which ones don't hire remotely? And so what we've built is the entire infrastructure to help executives. We give away most of that for free, the playbooks, the tactics, and some of the data. And then we have a pro version where we help execs connect in with their networks to be able to get those jobs, know where those jobs are, and to walk them in the door to lots of those. And so we are truly, it's the mission, which is it's a lot easier to build a company that charges 30% to companies to help them find their jobs. That's what recruiters do. We don't replace recruiters. What we do is we work for the executive to help them in this difficult time.
Could you work with recruiters or for recruiters?
We partner deeply with recruiters. So recruiters and talent partners have this conversation probably each one 30 to 40 times a week. Nice to meet you. You've got a great background. Don't have a role for you right now. let's stay in touch. So now those people are saying exactly that, but they're adding at the end, you should really go check out Whispered. And so most of our signups are coming from top recruiters and top talent partners. In exchange, we help them with connections, right? So we help the recruiters find challenging roles. We'll get pings from recruiters of like, hey, we're struggling to fill this role. Can you help? And we'll help. We also help them connect with great candidates. And then the talent partners, we help with lots of interesting insights as well too.
That's great. And so where is the line between like, the data, because it feels like some of this is data
Yes.
that comes to you that is not public because of the network, right? But then and so that's a skill and an asset. But then it's how to process this data together with other data that maybe is public or data that can be searched, but is not easy to find. And so this is all AI, right? That you're using too.
So first, let's maybe start with the one we started with, which was company data, right? So our original goal was the roles were early and we wanted to help people find those breakout companies. So we use Scalestack to help us figure out, as I mentioned, like, is the company hiring remotely or not? Are they a remote company? How big are they? How fast are they growing? What's their Glassdoor score? I'm trying to think what else. Who their investors are, when their last fundraising was. And so when you leave the working world, when you get fired or when you have to look for a new job, you lose access to updated data,
Mhm.
Zoom info, and you don't have it. And so we've built a completely free database of all of that information. Anybody can come on and use that. And so a lot of it is enriched by the Scalestack. So that was the first use case we had. The second use case we had was now we're starting to see a lot of people sign up. And we really know, and we've gotten smart, who we can help and who we can't. We always talk about there are people that are, there's A candidates, there's polishable candidates that we think we can help get to A, and then there's the more challenging candidates that, at least with our model right now, we can't help. And so we've built the agents to go do that decision process for us on there. So every time somebody signs up for Whispered, all they give us is their email and their professional profile. Then the Scalestack agents go out and they say what function, what level, what location, how many followers. They tell us a lot of those things. Those are kind of the easy, just pull them and find them. Then we've built some really powerful agents. One is to say, what is and this is the same evaluation that recruiters are doing all the time. And we spent time with them regressing it. But they say, what's the quality of the companies you've worked at? And so we've actually rebuilt that thing twice with your team because the thesis we had was wrong. But the one we've ended up with is it's actually three things. What do investors think about those companies? Two is what industries are those in? And the third is do those companies have a lot of followers? And so then we weight all that by how long you worked at each one of those companies, which is a fairly complicated mathematical process. And we come back with a score from 1 to 5, and then we write a reason for that we share. We actually share that with the people when they sign up. We also do the same for tenure, right? Like, maybe you had some amazing companies, but are you flighty? But that's actually a fairly complicated one, right? Because if you've got pavilion member, you can't use that. And so we had to build all the exclusion rules and all that. And I got really smart around how to write agents based upon working with your team. It was incredibly helpful. So we have a lot on, those are just a couple examples of how our AI basically tells us who we should talk to and who we shouldn't talk to. And then the third thing that we've recently rolled out with you was when we do get a role in, we don't always know who the hiring manager is. Sometimes we get it from a recruiter. We always tell our people never disintermediate recruiters. Sometimes it's just, hey, this company's hiring a CMO. And so we then send your AI agents out to interpret who would be the most logical hiring manager for that role at that company. And so that's incredibly powerful. And then we actually run that through our own network to figure out not only that, but who within Whispered has that connection to that person. And so all of this is being done by agents rather than by our team.
Fantastic. I don't think I could have said it better than what you just described. One thing that like makes me very curious is that back when you were a Carta, like a lot of this stuff that we discussed, and these were like Carta needs, which we're not going to go into detail, but um, there was an idea which is, I need to do a lot of this my team needs to do a lot of this themselves, so the access. And that's why Clay at the time made sense, because I mean, you guys wanted to touch it probably a lot and build it and craft it and clay it, or sculpt it, I think it's the conference, the way you want at the time. What we have observed, and this is an observation of the last year and a half, is that that also is very time consuming, and it absorbs a lot of people attention and time and even energy. And our observation then, when you were at Carta, but also now, is that people like you, yes, they like to experiment, but also they're really good at defining those use cases and solving problems. But then the idea is that agents autonomously can do this. Yes, now they are supported by the Scalestack team, but increasingly agents that can compose and run these workflows. So this long-winded comment to say, where do you think it's important to touch and create yourself, and when is instead important that you keep focusing on the strategic stuff, on the business inputs and defining the outcomes that you want to achieve, and only monitor this?
So I've run 4 RevOps teams at Unicorns, twice in the 40 to 50 people within that RevOps team. I think something like a Clay is massively powerful, but you need a in-house team to be able to do that. We did buy Clay and it didn't get enough value out. It kind of was more shelfware. And I think a lot of people would sit with that. There are these amazing Clay agencies that will do a lot of that work for you, but it's not, in Clay, like a lot of these great companies, they have a pre-sales team that will talk to you about it. But, I remember Salesforce's pre-sales team. They're we'll configure the whole thing, but when you sign up, you don't actually get that instance. You got to go build your own again. Right. And so I feel like Clay showed me the way, but we were struggling, right? It was, and I think what you guys bring is it's a managed solution in one, which is really attractive to me, right? So I have the technical capability to understand this. I have programmed in Clay. I have done it. I actually had to have 2 rockstar Clay people.
Expert, yeah.
Some of the great people at Clay built me V1. Then I had these 2 people that I can't name that were at other jobs that built V2 for. But it kept breaking and it was hard to do.
Yes.
Then I couldn't, in my own mind, solve it. So I had to wait for them to get on the phone with me. And I think what you guys have done is it's all there. It's turnkey solution. And so then me at this executive level can think about, what do I need to see out of the data, and I can ideate it, but I don't have to get my hands in the weeds. And so it's worked very well for me, right? We have a weekly call and it's progressed very quickly. And now at the point where we almost don't need those weekly calls, but we still keep them just to kind of check in and touch base and oh, have we thought about this, or have we thought about this? And then the team's always looking at the data at deeper level. So I kind of compare it to, you can go by Clay plus an agency, plus then I think the other challenge was integrating it into our architecture was more complicated as well too. And so it's I got all 3 of those from you guys versus I would have had to build all 3 of those separately. And I don't have the team to hire to do that. And then I didn't have a Clay agency and I think the all-in cost is cheaper for you guys, and the dependability and the ability to move fast is just better. And so that's why I believe in it. Then, without naming the company, I think I periodically help out amazing companies. So I was helping out a more than $100 million PLG company with their problem. And I was on the eval side for Zoom in, you guys, and we gave them a very high level feed of new signups that were Gmails because of the way this company was. And I knew from experience that a Clearbit or Zoom Info would do terribly, and they did. Not because they don't have good B2B data, but because it needed different data. I think Clay, I was very excited about to see how they would perform, and they performed, call it 35% match rate. And I think you guys got to a 48 or a 49% match rate before we even gave you more data. And so I was the ability to break apart problems differently is really compelling to me, right? So I've seen places where your combined solution just crushes the alternatives, not because they're not good and you couldn't get there with them, but it's a lot more piecing it together.
Given the speed of change and the pace, or the rate of change, what is your vision for Whispered in particular, but in general for anybody building with AI? Should we like envision a world where like, humans only do like the most strategic, high-end task and delegate everything to agents? Or you think that there will be still a lot of space for, technical, deeper work on the product itself?
I think this vision that AI is going to get rid of everything is, I don't fully subscribe to it. I think there's going to be so many corner cases that AI can't, right? Like we still can't make a dishwashing robot, right? Like it's the easiest damn thing in the world to do, but nobody can fucking do it because it's like, it's too nuanced. But it's like if you can think of it and you can put a process around it and you can train something. I remember Sam Altman described OpenAI as like your smartest intern, right? And I feel like you should treat it that way. And I don't think it's going to change much for a long time, right? And so it's like, but your smartest intern that doesn't have any hands or any feet, right? So it can't wash the dishes or it can't do anything else like that. And maybe you don't trust it to like fully open up your browser and different things. And so I think long-winded way of saying it's changing. That's kind of one of the reasons I rolled my sleeves up with Whisper, which is I want to build a one-person startup. Yes, I have a lot of people like you guys and some great devs helping me out, but like I don't need to go hire a bunch of people to do this thing. And for me, it's like I'm very conscious, and I've been doing a lot of thought around like I think the world of creating 1,000-person employee organizations is over for most businesses. And so that's a long-winded way of saying AI is going to change things. It's kind of like we couldn't have imagined living without the internet now. I think we won't be able to imagine without AI, but it'll be in
Yeah.
ways that we haven't even conceptualized yet, right? Like we didn't know we were going to use our phone to call a car. And so like that, you couldn't have planned that in 2000 or 2005 or even 2008.
Yeah. I mean, this field, I agree with you. Like I started my career in mobile technology, and so like, it completely changed like the way we communicate. This goes a little bit deeper because it changes the way we work. And we spend most of our time working. And so the change, I think, will be bigger. I mean, like the internet, like in many ways, changed like from paper to bits, and like all connected. Calling the cab with an app. This is like impacting how we spend every single moment of our day, like working primarily, but also in many other aspects. But it will be super interesting. I'm so happy we're working together, Andy. It's been extremely rewarding for me and for my team, who have like everybody that works with you like comes to me and says, "Oh, Andy's great. Like I've been learning so much, not just about the use case, but in general about how to think about like those problems." So it's been a great partnership, and I thank you for it. And let's do this more because I think every 6 months or so, I think we will have something interesting to say. And yeah, good luck with the next evolution of Whispered.
Thank you, my friend. We wouldn't be here without Scalestack, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.